And so about the time we think we've got enough raised here, then we don't, and we've got to raise some more money.
The Riverwalk would not be the Riverwalk were it not for Deborah and Satish Shah. They went down to San Antonio, Texas, fell in love with the Riverwalk there, came back to Elkhart and really created it around our city. And the Riverwalk now is becoming really the pinnacle for all the growth and change in downtown Elkhart. And it's exciting and it's fun.
My passion really was for children and for the future. And as on the Riverwalk card that I would usually send as a thank you note, it always had, my priority is not the kind of car that I drive, the house I live in, you know, or all the things that you have. It's, did I make a difference in a child's life? And I want to think and just know in my heart of hearts that there are children playing there, there are children skating there, there are festivals there. You know, they're having fun there.
By the good fortune, Satish planted here and grew his business here. I'm so glad that he did, and that he married well, and that he brought Deborah to Elkhart to lend her hand to my administration and the things going on in Elkhart.
As Satish and Deborah thrived, so did the business. Satish and his partner, Chuck Reed, now deceased, succeeded at finding ways to build and grow their customer base to include some of the largest companies in America.
There was a tremendous amount of national corporations that did business with Acropack, and they did a tremendous job in terms of their packaging ability. And they were very innovative. In other words, their whole philosophy was, and it was driven by Satish, and it was driven by Chuck Reed. In other words, it was a can-do. We can do it. In other words, it wasn't a factor of of a customer coming in and them looking at the product they wanted and saying, well, we can't do that. So well, we'll figure out a way to do this. We can do this. We'll get it, and you're going to be happy with it. And they did.
When there were opportunities to, grow the company, Satish had no qualms about it. He knew what needed to be done. Again, being a true entrepreneurial spirit, he would look at opportunities that would come up, and if they were the right opportunities, he would do it.
We told General Motors that we want to have a meeting with you. We think that you should not be handling your chemicals. They were shipping the chemicals to that dealer's then. We say, we have a plan that this is a hazardous chemical, this is a small part of your business. You should farm out that business to somebody, and we know how to do that for you. We made a big presentation to the management, and they really thought that it makes sense. So eventually they said, we're gonna consolidate everything with Chemcrest. And they allowed us the marketing. So Chemcrest grew quite a bit, and we took that model, what we did with General Motors, to Ford, Chrysler.
An innovative and successful business makes outsiders take notice. And before long, Satish had potential buyers who wanted Acropack's future growth to take place somewhere other than Elkhart.
I still remember it like it was last weekend. Satish called me and asked me to come over to his office on a Saturday. So I went over, and we met in his office. Across the desk, he slid a paper that he had gotten from another state offering him a huge incentive to pick up his entire company and move it to that state. He wanted to know what I could do to keep him here. And I desperately didn't want to lose him, but we couldn't match what the entire state was putting on his doorstep. But fortunately, we didn't have to, because Satish and Deborah loved Elkhart, and they had a great deal of investment here, not just personal wealth, but their life and soul. And so we were able to do what a city could do, which was minuscule in comparison to a state, but it was just enough to tell and remind them that we love and appreciate you, and we want you to stay here, and we're willing to do what we can to make that more agreeable to you and your stockholders. And so they we were able to amend the zoning just enough to accommodate the neighborhood and accommodate the factory's needs.
We have spent a lot of long nights in meetings on what the path is. And commonly we referred to, you have to have a plan, and then you have to prepare to deliver the plan if you're ever going to perform. So it was an ever-changing plan many times, but we were successful because we worked together as a team under his leadership. But I have to say that he led us, but he let us be autonomous.
The man was responsible for many people's lives and the quality of their lives by giving them employment and allowing them an opportunity to experience not only the great American dream, but whatever country they were from.
In every success story, there are inevitable setbacks. And so it was for Satish and Akrapak, suffering a devastating blow that would result in loss of life, the trust of the community, and the near loss of his entire business.
The biggest impression that I got is really when they had a tragedy in the corporation, and that was back in 1976, when unfortunately there was an accident at the plant and it devastated the plant. There was a number of casualties, and plus it basically put them out of business. The thing that was very impressive to me is the way that Satish conducted himself, and he had great concern, of course, for his people, for the unfortunates that lost their lives in the tragedy.
I was in high school, 1976, a senior at Elkhart Central, and I remember looking out the window and seeing the smoke rise from the tragic explosion they had back then.
In '76, there was a ozone crisis that people thought that fluorocarbon used in aerosols is going to damage all the environment. So all our customers are calling me with our formulation. They say, hey, we want you to get out of this bad publicity. So other choice was the carbon dioxide and the propane and butane. Propane and butane is a flammable propellant.
But one of the things that maybe the public didn't know, at least certainly not then, the state of that technology was in its infancy, or at least it wasn't fully developed.
At the time that accident happened, there was multiple accidents that happened around the country with the same scenario, in other words, explosions. And the basic thing that was at the root of it was the propellant that they used for the aerosol cans. And that was, of course, propane.
We had 5 casualties, so many other people got injured. It was just devastating.
There may have been a feeling in the community that he was somewhat aloof from the standpoint of the things that happened in these accidents, and that somehow, he had no concern for people. But that is far, far, far from the truth. I mean, he is a very compassionate person, and he does love people. And I know the original accident was devastating to him in terms of the people that were lost and injured. I mean, that did hurt him. It hurt him deeply. And here was a situation where we were completely out of business. He had orders to fulfill and so forth. And he said, I'm not quitting. We're going to be in business. And so what he did, he made arrangements with competitors, suppliers, and so forth for additional extensions of credit and also utilization of manufacturing facilities. And he just continued with the operation, fulfilled all his commitments to his customers, and slowly but surely came back and, of course, built the plant that now exists on Middlebury Street in Elkhart.
Well, after the fire, we built a facility, and I think now we're growing very fast. We're growing 30-40% a year because the facility was designed to handle those flammable products. And there weren't too many people in our industry, so we're set up as good as we were.
That explosion led to changes in the whole way that they monitor those gases and how they're sensed and how they're protected and how you handle those types of things, because they didn't know how to do it. Nobody knew how to do it prior to that.
The business once again grew and thrived. However, despite the safety measures and improvements, there was still an element of risk. And 21 years later, another explosion rocked Acropack, taking another life.
1997, it was June. I didn't know what happened because I heard the explosion. My office at the time was at the main plant, and the accident really happened in the north plant, the adjacent property. It shook the building. And it was devastating for all involved.
We all evacuated, and once we found out what had happened, Satish was at the other plant at the time, and he came over, and I remember the engineer who was at that facility had to break the news to him. They didn't know, the extent of the damage or anything, but what had happened, and then we found out there was a fatality. I can remember the look on Satish's face. It was terror.
When I first saw Satish after the incident, it looked like he had aged 10 years. Took it very seriously. There was a fatality. There were 20 people in the room. 19 walked out unharmed. One gentleman, a door blew off its hinges, and that's what caused the fatality. And it was very somber. I don't know if many people know it. I mean, Satish started a trust fund for the gentleman's child. And I know there were several benefits to try to help out.
In fact, there were 4 explosions within 2 months at 4 different aerosol manufacturers. Each of the factories where the incidents occurred was using pollution control equipment recently mandated by EPA regulations. Within 6 weeks of the Acropack incident, the EPA determined that these control devices, called thermal oxidizers, would be removed from the regulations.
We couldn't change what happened. We learned what happened, we understood what happened, and it was what it was, but Satish did what he did best, and that was identify what the situation was, identify what the problem was. He took care of the family, and nobody could replace the fellow that passed away, but he did the next best thing. As a result of that, we all became very much more aware of the environment that we were working in, and the folks in safety, and the executives at the company made sure that we were well aware of how things were going to be operating in that company, and we continued with a strong record of safety and security.
It's very easy to just throw up your hands and say, I don't need this, I don't want this. But the hard thing to do is to say, I know what I'm doing, I know what I want to accomplish, I know it's right, and I know I can't do it by myself, but I can provide for all these people as a community and all these people as a group, that we can accomplish something together.
Well, through failure does come innovation, and do come extra precautions and extra safety measures. And they were definitely implemented. They were not only implemented at Acropack, but I understand throughout the rest of the country.
Amidst the ashes of a terrible tragedy, you have 2 choices. You either put your head down and rebuild, or you just put the flag up and say, yeah, we failed. Well, what are we going to do here? And I think that's part of his personality, is his optimism. He rallied the troops, he rallied the team, and I think that really inspired him to take the business even to the next level. He wanted to prove, probably to the community, more to himself, his family, his friends, the industry, that this is his legacy. This is what he wants to do, and this is what he wants to build, and he did it very successfully.
By this point, Acropack and, more importantly, Satish and Deborah were well established in the Elkhart area. Elkhart was their home, and they had supported the community in more ways than simply offering jobs. They did so through their civic involvement, charity work, and support of local causes. And now the community was there to support them.
Community at a time when you need community can help you, because if you contribute to the community at a time that may be a time, especially in Acropack, that when we had a disaster fire, community came to our support, and we were able to get back in a business. That helps us, that community people appreciate what you're able to do. You're not taking away from community, you're putting back in a community, and that's important.
We want Elkhart to be the place where our kids come back after they go to college. You know, so many of our friends, their kids would graduate and they'd go off somewhere else. And that, you know, I'm like, no, it needs to be a fun place, and it has turned out to be a fun place.
Frankly, I never really considered moving back to Elkhart. You know, out of college, I lived in London for a little while. My first job was really going to be in Chicago, and I kind of got lured in by my father to, you know, work for him, learn the business, and that's really what did it. Is I thought it would be maybe a 1 or 2 year assignment, and fell in love with the job. It was a pretty special opportunity to actually work with my dad and learn from him, and really fell in love with the community.
There is no better surrounding you can find in Elkhart to raise your family. Yeah, I think it's a great, big city doesn't have that, you know, you can't provide what we can provide here.
My brother sponsored all 4 other 3 brothers, so they can make his life hard, they can make his life good for in USA, and they can fulfill his dream. They want to build up their wish, you know, and they did it. They all did good hard work. Hard work is always, whenever you go, you have to do hard work if you want to come up anywhere. So my dream also that I will go one day in the USA, and I will fulfill my wish with my family, and we are all happy over here.
We have such a tremendous entrepreneurial spirit, and people like to be supportive. Witness the Learner Project, the IUSB Elkhart campus, now with the new aquatic center and this type of thing. We have a very well-established community foundation for the county. Those kinds of things bring in a lot of philanthropic dollars, and they're invested wisely. And so we are able to be an attraction to a lot of people because Elkhart County is known as some place that gets things done.
The other big successful point is really around Elkhart. Is anytime you need something, you know, people are here to give you a hand. Anytime you need advice, I've had more coffee meetings with some of the older generation, the retired folks, who are always willing to just, you know, give me a helping hand, give me some advice, give me some perspective, and just kind of having that network and that community is really priceless, and it was definitely a big part of our success.
Elkhart has so much to offer. I mean, we have over 50,000 manufacturing jobs in Elkhart County. I mean, it is a strong county for manufacturing. It is a strong county for getting a job, raising a family, and we still offer that